Television. Thank you so much for joining us again this beautiful Monday morning, the very ninth day in the month of February 2026. And my name is Shogun Fumi. You're welcome.
And I am Adiola Adegoke. We're glad to have you join us this Monday morning as we'll kick off your week with Frontline. We'll bring to you news across the world, news analysis, news trends, what the papers are saying, and of course, conversation on happenings around the country. And, well, you can also be part of the conversation by dropping comments on feeds, on our live feeds, and of course calling the studio to hear your opinion on issues discussed.
Yes, just like you mentioned, yes, you can drop your comment on issues discussed as we'll be bringing to you what's trending across Nigeria and beyond this morning. And yes, we will not leave out, what's on the front pages of our national dailies. And of course, today being Monday, we would take a look at what we have as Baptists. So don't forget that this is New Frontiers Television, owned by the Nigerian Baptist Convention. Yes, Mondays we focus on the Baptist belief, where we intimate ourselves on what are those unique things and the peculiarities of the Nigerian Baptist Convention, or the Yardra, the Baptist at large. Yesterday we will be having that same episode where we have the Vice President Ministerial of the Nigerian Baptist Convention, Reverend Professor John Ayinaya, who will be giving us insight into some of the germane topics that we have yes, in the Nigerian Baptist Convention. Of course, that would end the frontline for today. All right, stay with us on the Frontiers TV. We'll be right back after this short break, and when we come back, we'll see what's trending. Stay with us. Playing with us on New Frontiers Television. Yes, recently there's been a lot of attack in Nigeria, and yes, these attack has raised concern in Nigeria itself, and yes, of course, the international stage, where several quarters have condemned, these attacks on and the issue of the rising insecurity, and yes, December will not go off our memory in any time soon, as the intervention of the United States military on the 25th of December, on this issue of insecurity. And don't forget that the United States has labeled Nigeria as a country of concern. And yes, these are all things that began to raise a lot of concern as to what Nigerian government has been doing on the issue of insecurity. And also this just recently we have another attack in Kwara State, where we have 75 persons who were killed, and yes, many persons were injured. And on the international scene, now we have Pope Leo 16, the Christian Association of Nigeria has not expressed deep sorrow over this attack on communities in Kwara State. And yes, the Pope did convey closeness, a prayerful closeness to all the victims of this violence and terrorism, urging authorities to continue their efforts to ensure safety and protection of every citizen. Indeed, mentioned that it's quite sorrowful, and it's a great loss to Nigeria with this loss of life. And yes, the Nigerian Northern Khan, that's the Christian Association of Nigeria, representing the 19 northern states of the country, and the FCT has also extended condolences to the families of these victims and solidarity to the state government and its people, and also to the Muslim community that's been affected by this tragedy.
Yes, unfortunately, it seems like Kwara State now is the base for terrorist attacks, I mean banditry, whatever name it is that we want to call it these days. Because while Nigerians are still mourning the loss of over 100 persons that died in the Woro community massacre, on Sunday again in another community in Kwara State, there was an invasion of about 15 armed bandits, which led to citizens fleeing their community. Although they were intercepted by forest guards and local hunters, there was still a killing of a forest guard who was later taken to an hospital in nearby Kogi State. This is it is quite unfortunate that the government seems not to be able to find a lasting solution to the issues happening in Kwara State, and the Kwara State government seems to be at loss also because they've been trying everything to ensure safety, to flush out these attackers, but it looks like it is beyond them, and citizens are forced to flee what they've known as their home base in 1 second, because when attack you cannot actually predict when attack happens, and when attack happens, nobody remembers that, oh, I've been building for 15 years, I've been here for 10 years. People have to flee almost immediately. It is worrying that Kwara State, I mean, that section of Kwara State is fast becoming what Maiduguri was when there was the heat of the Boko Haram, where the early happenings of Boko Haram in Nigeria. Now, if all of those communities now become deserted, this is going to have a dastardly effect on the Nigerian community as a whole.
Yes, I think it's high time the government, began to look at ways to stem these, matter, these reoccurring, attacks in Kwara State. And yes, there is a need to, look at situation now. Kogi State, which experienced similar attack at the same time with Kwara State, just yesterday announced some closures of market to ensure that official terrorists in that community. And yes, these are measures that the government need to take to nip this matter at the board. And yes, as much as we are talking about the government, yesterday the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria did receive a delegation from the United States, led by the commander of the United States Africa Command at the presidential villa. And these delegation who visited the president also had, in the company of the Mr. Khalid, who is the charge affair of the United States Embassy in Nigeria. And also the president has been flagged also by the National Security Advisor, there's Malam Nuru Ribadu, and the Nation Service Chiefs in that meeting. Although reports shows that there were no comment about what the meeting was about, but yes, these will be another second meeting after the very official meeting with the United States security agencies on February 3rd, which was a very first official U.S. military, presence on Nigerian soil, since the airstrike with targeted terrorists in a position in the country, that happened on the Christmas Day 2025.
Yes, well, unfortunately, it looks like the issue of security in Nigeria is it's a major issue, but then the problem is while the government seems to be doing their best, it still appears like little or nothing is being
done.
done, because of course it looks like these groups are regrouping and then reforming, re-expanding and all of that. So he's making the whatever plans, whatever actions, whatever game plan the federal government seems to have, is making it look like the federal government is not working, because again you want to also while people are hungry, while people are upset that things are happening the way it is happening, you still do not want to undermine the activities of the security agencies, because considering that they've really stepped up their game in the last few months. But it still looks like there's a lot to be done, and I for one, I really don't know what else how else the federal government can communicate to the average Nigerian that we have your interest at that we are really concerned about issues of insecurity, and that we are focused on ensuring that Nigeria is secured. Because beyond all of the interventions and all of that, it's still almost insignificant. There's still herdsmen killing in some parts of the country. There's still kidnapping cases. I remember the kidnapping case that happened in Edo State. And these things happen every day. Even the roads are still not secured, because people travel and then they get kidnapped. People travel, they get shot at on the road. Nobody wants to really move from one base to the other, because you're not sure what's going to happen when you're moving on the road. So I think that the federal government really needs to expand their scope. I know that when on issues of security, they say, oh, we can't disclose what the plans are, we can't tell you what the negotiations are, of course, for safety reasons also, to ensure that the communications do not get into the wrong hands also. But okay, if we say the government should declare state of emergency, the government has done that. They've declared state of emergency on security matters. But I think we need to send stronger signal to these groups, so that they know that Nigeria is not a place where they can settle and disrupt, because it is becoming increasingly alarming that the rate at which people are killed, the rate at which even those in the southwest who feel like they're safe before, people are no longer safe in their homes.
Yeah, I believe that just like the question you asked, that how best the government can say to Nigeria, to say that action speaks louder, than voice, regardless of several meetings that, yes, the government have been having over time. What many Nigerians would expect is, how far does this translate to the safety of lives and properties, on the street? How well are we safe? How soon can we, move from one location to the other without being afraid of being killed or attacked? And yes, these are things that Nigerians are requesting and asking for from Nigerian government. And all we're expecting the government to do is less talk, and more actions. Yes, we've seen the president declare state of emergency on insecurity over time. We've seen the CDS, the Minister of Defense, mentioning several operations going on. But in the true cause of it, when are we going to stop the headlines, having headlines, that has to do with banditry, that's to do with, killings, that's to do with some forms of other insecurity in the country, where it looks like there are more focus on the northern part, some northern states rather of the country. It looks like we have less focus about other states, which there are these issues, also. Now, in the course of a month thereabout, we see the attack, that we had in Kwara State, which caused for concern about a shift from what it used to be. It used to be in the center, the northern, west, northeastern part of the country, that most of these attacks are really rampant. But yet now it looks like every part of the country seems not to be safe. If not for banditry or herdsmen attack, it would definitely be issue of kidnapping, on different scaling. And yes, even on the public social space, we've seen where crowdfunding has been done for the issue of kidnapping.
I mean, since governments are earmarking certain amounts for ransom payment.
For ransom, these are worrisome. And yes, all we can ask for as Nigerians is, for the government to take the bull by the horn and show us more of action, and less talk. All right, now moving away from the issue of insecurity in Nigeria to some politics. Now let's talk some politics, and yes, we would be spotlighting the issue around the People's Democratic Party, who yes have two factions, and this faction over time has been a loggerhead. And remember, there's the last clash that happened at the secretariat that building in Abuja eventually resulted into clash between the faction led by Wike and that led by Makinde. And again, yes, there was a court ruling against. Okay, before that, the November 2025 witnessed a said convention in Ibadan, said convention for the People's Democratic Party, which a court sitting in Ibadan has nullified that convention. You will recall that convention, saw the emergence of some persons to be the leader, to steal the leadership of the People's Democratic Party, where we have Tamino Turaki, who is the said chairman, the national chairman for that party, and yes, is laying claim to be the legitimate, PDP national convention. ESCO, which came out from that. And don't forget that during that convention, which was held in Ibadan, also, Wikis and some other party member were expelled, from that. And yet the aftermath of that November 15 was the clash that we experienced in Abuja during the takeover of the party secretariat. Now, where the issue is, after the judgment in Ibadan, we nullified that convention, November 15 convention in Ibadan. There is a planned reopening of this People Democratic Party National Secretariat at the Wadata Plaza in Abuja by the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, some Wike, backed caretaker committee through the police intervention. Yes, that particular action has sparked, several concerns over confrontation. And don't forget that there was a meeting on Thursday by the National Secretary of the Wicked-led PDP faction, that's Samuel Anyawu, who mentioned after the closed-door meeting with the head of the Independent National Electoral Commission and headquarters, which mentioned that the faction would take over the National Secretariat today. And the issue of this National Secretariat, has been on for quite a number of months now. Yeah, it's going to months now.
Yes, I mean, both factions are linked
yes.
To the headquarters, and okay. Let's just take a brief. There was an attempt to access the Wadata Plaza Secretariat by the two factions, and they resulted in clashes and police intervention. The police has been instructed to open the secretariat following they've been barred from acting as national officers, and that they have no right to come disrupt lawful activities at the secretariat, which of course will mean that they are in contempt of courts. But again, the Turaki-led National Working Committee also responded, cautioning against self-help measures, noting that the matter is still under appeal, and that so nobody can lay claim, so to speak. They claim that they are still the rightful executives. Therefore, they hold the key to the secretariat, the key in quotes to PDP, and we of course know that the People's Democratic Party has been embroiled in a lot of crisis, which has been affecting the political party, especially for the elections that have been happening and are going to happen before the 2027 election, because it looks like without a leadership, it's almost impossible for anybody to vie under the political party, which has led to some of their major bigwigs moving, shifting grounds and moving to other political parties to get a platform to contest.
Yes, that's a big turn off if the PDP did not get their house in order. And it looks like, let's say, Ocean State now, the governor who intend to seek a re-election, have to move to another party, to seek the election, ditto, some other positions in that. Now, even for the 2027 election, it looks like it's more threatened because sales of farm need to start, in March. And these are the concerns that has brought to stakeholders in the People's Democratic Party, and not just that, to Nigeria. It looks like PDP, not even looks like, PDP, has been in existence for a long time. In fact, is the only party, that stayed that long, from 1999 that we had without transformation, to other party. We have, APC has been emerged from, involvement, emerging from different, political party. But yes, this prior program issues ravaging PDP at this time need to be looked into. And yes, we have the Turaki-led party, led National Working Committee saying that the matter is still, being subject to appeal. And yes, they believe that the appeal will send a sense of relief, to all the scooters, that we are experiencing. But yes, we would, bring you update once we've got them today, and let's see, how far what will happen in the secretariats today, if it will be opened. And yes, sales of forms, will begin tomorrow or not. But whatever the situation is, we would definitely bring that to you in earnest. All right, now let's begin to talk about another story that's trending. And yes, it's been the news has been trending for quite a number of days, and has now, as the Senate has now taken that matter quite seriously, and they've announced an emergency plenary sitting for Tuesday, amidst the mountain public outrage, over their passage of the Electoral Act Amendment Bill, particularly the rejection of a clause mandating real-time electronic transmission of election results. And yes, the president of the Senate directed the convene of the plenary for this Tuesday on emergency notice. And don't forget that the Nigerian Labour Congress did one of a potential nationwide protest and election boycott over what they describe as confusion and contradictory position by the Senate on the amendment to the Electoral Act, and particularly on the issue regarding electronic transmission of election results.
Yes, I think last week when the issue came up, a lot of stakeholders, Nigerians, both home and abroad, have kicked against the decision of the Senate to not approve that, most especially that one clause of transmitting election in real time, and it is understandable, considering that this is an age of technology, and also considering that technology would further help improve our quality of election in Nigeria. Now, as I guess the Senate concerning this, but I appreciate the fact that forward, because the Nigeria Labour Congress is warned of a potential nationwide protest and election boycotts and contradictory positions by the Senate, particularly regarding the activists have also come up to say that they will not be admitting the Amendment Bill 2026, describing the move to remove transmission of election results as a deliberate act of democracy. There's been, I think, some coalition I mean, NGOs, political activists are planning an Occupy National Assembly
Assembly.
protest for today in Abuja. So I want to presume that this is National Assembly has a time to meet so that they can revisit this issue. And of course, we will. They've not said what their position is going to be concerning the issue. They just said that there will be they are going to try and resolve the differences in the amendment bill. And I hope that in trying to review this, they also listen to what the people are asking for. Because it is not rocket science. People are voting. It is electronic. Let us know the number of votes in real time. There's no reason why we should have to wait 48 hours, 24 hours, 8 hours to know what exactly the results are.
Yes, and we're in this. We're no longer in the Stone Age. This is a digital world, where digital and technology can easily take place. And yes, there's been several concerns, just like we have mentioned. And apart from that, we still have the Afenifere demands acceptance, of that. I think what people actually have, concerns about is the removal of the clause, 60C of the amendment, basically, which yes, we'll see, what comes out of the meeting by the plenary tomorrow. And yes, Nigeria, Afenifere did mention that the survival of Nigeria's democracy is dependent on the legislative embracing a credible, technologically-driven electoral framework ahead of the 2027 general election, which yes, includes a real-time transmission of results from polling units to the INEC result viewing portal. And I think there must be clarity and clarification about this matter so that we don't get confused. You remember the 2023 now. Yes, 2023 election, there were controversies around the beavers, the transmission of, results, which, yes, there were confusion about, is it automatically what they should follow, or not, back and forth on that matter of beavers. And yes, we will bring you update, once we've got them about the situation. So we keep our hands forward and see, what happens at the session tomorrow and what the Senate and the rep, yes, the House of Rep also, are making plans to meet with their counterparts, on this same matter. So we'll see what the National Assembly we come up with on this matter that has to do with the amendment of the Electoral Act. All right, that much would be taken on our trends forward today. Let's take a short break, and when we come back, Frontline, we continue. Just stay with us. with us on eFronters Television. All right, let's move to our next segment. And yes, it will be a time to check what we have on the front pages of our national dailies across board, this morning. And I'll begin with the front page of the Daily Independent. And on the front page of the Daily Independent, I have manufacturing sector on path to recovery years after headwinds. All right, that story is right there on the front page of the Daily Independent, and it has the story there, which continues on page 2 in the inside. All right, now the story says NSC threatens mass action over e-transmission of poll results issue. Stories on page 7. SERAP asks CCB to probe senators over Electoral Act amendment, tax reform bills. All right, another story says pouring public fund into moribund refineries, economically indefensible. And the story is coming from the former Vice President Atiku. Senate holds emergency plenary tomorrow amidst a poll results transmission dispute. And now the story says pension assets surge boost path to 185 trillion naira, 50% GDP shares. That story is right there on the front page and continues on the inside page also. All right, and the story says Pope asks a Nigerian government to protect citizens. Stories on page 6, and yes, there's a picture story here of the president who's been flagged by the U.S. military delegations. All right, that's much I have on Daily Independent for today.
On the front page of the Guardian newspaper, T-bills see over 400% demand spike as manufacturers face credit squeeze. Page 6 has details of the story. BOI secures CBN's approval for non-interest banking. Pope mourns victims of attack in Nigeria, urges government to protect citizens. Atiku, no economic sense in reviving failed refineries after $1.5 billion. Outcry grows over e-transmission ahead of Senate emergency session. Page 6 of the Guardian newspaper has details of that story. IPOP cannot cancel Monday sit-at-home order. SAN rank under scrutiny as AGF CJN won against abuse of influence. And that's the much on the front page of the Guardian newspaper.
On the Punch, I've got few stories. There says not Electoral Act standoff. Senate calls emergency plenary to protest as protest looms. The writer says the Occupy National Assembly protest slated for Monday. NLC Falana Ezekwesili Utomi 1 FG. All right, we'll have Senate ought recess to review electoral bill. The story is right on page 2. Makinde Wike camps set for showdown at the PDP headquarters today. The story is on page 7. The much I have on the front page of the Punch.
On the front page of this day newspaper, Electoral Act, Akpabio summons emergency sitting, notable Nigerians kick, NLC warns. Page 42 of this day newspaper has details of that story above the nameplate. In record upswing, Enugu grows IGR by 1,464% from 26 billion in 2023 to 406.7 billion naira. Target 870 billion naira in 2026. Tax revenue accounts for 12.6% IGR, non-tax 87.4%. Details continues on page 8 of this day. Bank of Industry gets CBN's nod to float non-interest banking window. That's the much on the front page of this day newspaper.
Now let's take a look at what we have on the front page of the Nigerian Tribune. Nigerian Tribune says Electoral Act, Senate to hold emergency sitting, NLC threatened mass action. And the writer says Akpabio conference committee members, others come under pressure. We won't take anything less than real-time transmission. It's coming from a Baribe. Human rights lawyer, SDP, others condemn Senate. And the story is right there on page 22 and page 23 of the Nigerian Tribune. And above the nameplate, in security, Tinubu receives the commander of U.S. Africa Command. Atiku demands privatization of refineries. Says politics must never substitute for sound transformative policy. Stories on page 2. Khan urges Tinubu to establish military base in Awara local government, Niger. And the story is on page 2. Police seized large consignment of illicit drug in Ibadan. Federal government reopens Somiya border corridor in Kebbi. Now, health matter, sleeping without pillow will help lower internal eye pressure. IPOB cancels Monday sit at home. And the story is on page 29. NDLEA arrests China-bound auto part dealer for ingesting 95 cocaine wraps. The story is on page 26. And lastly, police confirm death of blogger. 3 others inside Lagos music studio. And the story is right there on page 26. And that's much I have on the front page of the Nigerian Tribune.
On the front page of Daily Trust, Electoral Bill, NLC threatens mass action. Pages 3 and 4 of Daily Trust has details of that story. 30 die, many injured in Kano road accident. U.S.-Nigerian travels deep amidst visa ban